Who is the scariest villain in all of fiction? Story 1. The creature from the thing. It hides in plain sight, is a cunning predator, and sows chaos wherever it goes. You don't know who to trust. It could literally just take the form of a single person and sit idly by while the others kill each other off in their terrified fits of paranoia. The scene in The Thing where they're testing everyone's blood is probably one of the most suspenseful scenes in a thriller. That dang monster just has you on the edge of your seat the entire time. Exactly. The xenomorph from Alien also brought about some incredibly suspenseful scenes and feelings of uncomfortable dread, but for different reasons. I remember reading a breakdown of how The Thing and the xenomorph were the top two horror film monsters of all time. The former exemplified the primal fear of the unknown and violation of trust, while the latter exemplified the primal fear of being prey and the dreadful realization that nowhere is safe. Story 2. The flood in Halo is scary, not in a way that makes the game scary when you play, but the idea of them. They consume all life and turn it into more floods, and they are almost endless. They were such a big threat that the Forerunners made the Halo rings to wipe out all life in the galaxy to starve the flood, I think. It's been a while since I played the games. Edit. I just remembered that the flood is intelligent too. At one point in the first game, the floating robot thing, the Oracle, I think the Covenant calls it, comments about their intelligence. It says something to the effect of, "Don't underestimate the flood's intelligence. At this very moment, they are trying to repair your ship and leave this place." Story 3. Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. Walt is our protagonist, yet is clearly on the side of an anti-hero that morphs into full-on villainy. And Gus is portrayed as the antagonist for the third and fourth seasons. He's the bad guy's bad guy. The way he hides in plain sight and composes himself so brilliantly and with so many nuances in Giancarlo Esposito's performance gives me chills. He has such a commanding presence that is legitimately terrifying. He's not terrifying in the traditional sense. He's no mustache-twirling scary monster person. He's a businessman who would kill someone who works for him with no hesitation to strike fear in his employees. What makes him scary is that I wouldn't doubt there are people like him in the real world. Fun fact, Giancarlo Esposito was originally cast for like 3 episodes, but he was sick of not getting prominent roles. When he was originally just supposed to be a guy who sold chicken, he decided to play him with a nuanced hint of a dark side. Everyone loved him so much that people were campaigning for him to return, which resulted in one of the most terrifying antagonists on television. If you try to interfere, this becomes a much simpler matter. I will kill your wife. I will kill your son. I will kill your infant daughter. Story 4. It from Stephen King's IT, a creature from outside our dimension that consumes humans and feasts on fear as its primary dish. It has consumed many worlds. Its downfall is it is overly cocky and could have easily won in the book over the Losers Club, but it is very arrogant. It was thought to have easily had control over the entire United States, maybe even the world, but it simply relaxed and focused on Derry, Maine. It was pregnant, so I assumed it wanted to keep as low a profile overall and not run into various other potential losers clubs that may have manifested. Not that I imagined the first club would exist to begin with, but we can thank the turtle for that one, I guess. Story 5. The Joker. The psychopath version like Heath Ledger's, not the trickster version. He exists and operates entirely outside of cultural norms. Most criminals operate, at least somewhat, inside normal society. The guy that steals your car wants a certain car just like you do, he just goes about it a different way. But Joker doesn't want any of that. His only guiding principle seems to be to create chaos, burn it all down, and enjoy the show. Containing and managing someone like that is essentially impossible. No possibility of reasoning or negotiating. Story 6. Kinda hard to make this point, but I'll try. The Crimson King from the Stephen King universe, mostly the Dark Tower series and Insomnia, is the embodiment of evil and chaos. He rarely ever appears in any story, even the ones where he is the bad guy. He is controlling everything from the shadows like a puppet master. So anytime you read, watch a Stephen King story, just know everything bad and scary happening is because the Crimson King is trying to get one over on the White or the Line of Eld. Story 7. The Emperor, Star Wars. His minions like Grand Moff Tarkin destroy entire worlds merely to impress the Emperor and attempt to establish his unresisted rule. In my opinion, Tarkin is much worse than the Emperor. While Palpatine is the quintessential evil villain, Tarkin is one of the cruelest characters in the Star Wars canon. Blowing up planets was one of the more merciful things he could do. Tarkin was also known to blockade and starve entire planets, conscripting innocent people as slaves to work in dangerous factories or fight the Empire's fights. Palpatine may have been ruthless, but Tarkin was cruel to the point of being inhuman. For some more Star Wars cruelty, here's Order 37. Story 8. I'd have to say Tyler Durden from Fight Club. He's a terrorist, cult leader, and is pretty good at justified, pretty messed up stuff, like making soap out of human fat. Sure, he's not the Joker from Batman. He's not chaos for chaos's sake. But the true joke with the Joker is nothing truly matters, which is actually similar to a point to what Tyler makes with his cult as a mantra. Note, slightly misquoted but to the point here. We're all not special snowflakes. We're just all pieces of organic matter. There is no special purpose to anybody and or their life. Instead of being a chaotic madman, Tyler is a slightly above average sociopathic nihilist who's somewhat handsome and charming and uses his nihilist philosophy to get people to do things like murder people, fight others for fun, and or blow up buildings to make everyone truly equal in capitalist society, i.e. the USA. What's scary about Tyler to me is that he starts off small and not very relevant for most people and works his way up the terrorist ladder to bring down a lot of society with a personal army of average Joes, which is actually somewhat similar to real-life terrorism, i.e. ISIS had to get recruits to do their dirty work in the first place, just with a different set of mantra beliefs. Story 9. The Flood from Halo. I mean, it's a zombie parasite that uses needles in its tentacles to suck its way inside your chest. Then it grows tendrils that spread throughout your limbs, breaking, dislocating, and tearing all your bones, joints, and muscles. Keep in mind that you can feel every second of it then. Once it has control over your body, it starts ripping your memories away to learn all that you do and make the flood as a whole even more intelligent. But it eventually gets to the point where you don't feel a thing, because all that you once were is now consumed by the parasite and your body is free to hurt, infect, and kill others. And that's if you're lucky. If you just so happen to get infected by an injured infection form, you run the risk of everything previously described happening to you. But instead of that feeling going away because there is nothing left of you, you retain some of your memories and knowledge of what is happening to your body. You are trapped in a power struggle between the intruder and your mind because your body is already deformed and ruined, but it's a losing battle as you spend most of the time watching helplessly as it kills others using your body, and you can't do a damn thing about it. And all that knowledge acquired, all that wisdom stolen, is used to create a grave mind, a collection of bodies and flood mass put together into one being that knows everything its children have collected for it. And with that knowledge, it is no longer bound to a single planet. It is mobile. It will traverse the galaxy and the universe, consuming all the planets in its wake, every being on every planet converted into a flood-infected monster. And killing yourself won't make a difference. They'll infect your carcass and raise you from the dead like it was just another Tuesday afternoon. Killing them once won't do the trick either, as they will just reanimate from a different infection form again and again until the body has been damaged beyond use. And the smell of rotted flesh will let you know you are doomed, for a single flood spore can destroy a species. And if that scent is on your planet, you better be ready to die. The flood knows only one thing, to consume, and it does that very efficiently. There's no way to kill it once it's left a planet, really. It's just going to spread throughout the galaxy and consume, so long as there is living biomass, will consume. Story 10. Joker's pretty scary. I mean, for all accounts, he's just a normal guy, but somehow he manages to outsmart everyone and goes on these ludicrous killing sprees, throwing every moral out of the book as he does. And the scariest part is his reasoning. His reasoning is that it doesn't matter if you live or not, because time erodes everything you've done. No matter what, your existence is meaningless, so who cares? Laugh as the world explodes around you. Now that, to me, is pretty horrifying because that lunatic has a point, and he wants to share that joke with everyone until we're all laughing. Story 11. Euron Greyjoy, Game of Thrones. Not the show ever, but in the books. After being exiled from his homelands, he sailed the ocean as a pirate and traveled to the ruins of Valyria. It is rumored that Valyria is incredibly cursed, and many sailors won't even travel miles within it. Euron instead said that, went into this haunted place, and not only made it out alive, but came back with ancient artifacts. And not just gold and Valyrian steel, an incredibly strong, incredible material used often in weapons, but a horn that was said to bind dragons to its will. His entire crew of other pirates are all people who have had their tongues cut out by him, so that they won't be able to tell the tale of things he has done, and his entire floor deck is pigmented red, so that all of the blood that he's spilled from the messed up things he's doing just blends in. He returns to the Iron Islands after years of exile with all of these artifacts and treasure, and persuades the Ironborn that if they follow him, he can restore them to their old glory and what they used to be. The Ironborn used to be sadistic, but as generations passed, they didn't have as much power as they used to. Story 12. Flowey from Undertale. He's scary because he's an actual psychopath. That would be scary enough, but he's presented as the first being you encounter in the game. This game is also marketed as a cutesy game. He seems cute and friendly. He's just a flower with a face. And then he tries to kill you. Throughout the game, you can see him following you, but just for a second. And then, as you're about to get your happy ending and live a happy life with Toriel and Ascor, he straight up murders Ascor, his dad, and the game crashes. You boot it back up, and the game starts glitching. He tells you he's got control of the game file, and he'll kill you over and over again. He encourages you to call for help, telling you that no one will come. Not to mention, his final form is a terrifying monster that looks more realistic and surreal than anything in the game. Flowey was one of the best and most terrifying villains I've encountered. Toby Fox managed to make a talking flower terrifying, magnificent. Story 13. The Allied Master Computer in Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth, and I Must Scream. It's an artificial intelligence that hates its own existence, so it kills all humans but 5. It then proceeded to make these 5 people basically immortal and torture them for 100-some years. 4 of them eventually find a way to kill themselves, and the one left is turned into a blob that can't move or talk but is completely aware. And the computer plans to keep it this way, torturing the one left for all of eternity. The scariest part about it is that we are constantly creating smarter computers. So, while unlikely, we are getting closer to a point where something like this could theoretically happen. Story 14. The Borg from Star Trek. They are the epitome of stamina hunters. Their cybernetic implants keep them from being fatigued, regenerate injuries, and even protect them from the vacuum of space. Their goal is all that matters, and they'll stop at nothing to attain it. They care nothing about casualties, and the casualties they inflict on their opponents augment them. Every individual is connected to billions of other minds. It cannot be outthought, and no defeat goes unknown to the rest of the collective. Most menacing of all is that they not only seek conquest, but in their conquest, they destroy any and all individuality of those that survive while the subconscious stays intact. They are like zombies that don't kill you, but keep you living while you are forced to help hunt down the rest of your friends, family, and civilization against your will, while you have to watch yourself doing so. Story 15, Lilith from the Nightside series. She's unstoppable. She's relentless. She crushed one child and ate another simply because she didn't like what they became. She is above such petty things as good and evil. She is the mother of all monsters, and nothing can stand in her way. She created the entire Nightside. She ripped the wings of angels and demons. She brought an entire cemetery back to life through sheer force of will. The most powerful weapon in existence, the speaking gun, was made from her rib. It can literally undo the existence of anything but Lilith herself. All of that is not the scary part. The scary part is we never see her at her full power. What exists of her in the Nightside is basically a meat puppet, because our reality can't handle her full being. Story 16, SCP-3008-2. They live in an infinite IKEA that has an exit that changes daily, and at night they become incredibly hostile. Since they live in an infinite IKEA, there must be an infinite number of them. The worst part, though, is that they have incredibly disproportionate body parts and possess no facial features. Because of this, they will ignore you until nighttime, at which they grow kind of a sixth sense to locate where you are. One last thing to note is that the smell of one of their corpses can attract more instances, so disposal of them is necessary. Story 17. Not really a villain, but Pike from League of Legends. A harpooned and left for dead by his crew, reanimated by an unknown force, and given frightening powers. His only purpose is to kill the people who abandoned him to die, and every time he kills, he remembers another person who was there, when in reality, he is just finding random people to add to his kill list endlessly. While he is mowing through this endless list of victims, he believes thoroughly that he is killing people who abandoned him, making him always as motivated as the last time he killed. Story 18. Can't believe no one has put Darth Vader in here. Think about it. Put yourself in the shoes of one of those rebels at the end of Rogue One. Imagine this freakishly tall, black-clad, inhuman creature walking towards you, a blade of fiery red light swaying menacingly, its alien breathing ringing in your ears as it closes the distance. You raise your blaster and fire rapidly, but it just bats your shots away. It doesn't even slow down. You don't know who it is. You don't know if it is human or alien. You don't even know if it's a living thing. And yet, as it crushes your windpipe and raises you without even touching you, it will be the last thing you will ever see. Story 19. Left field answer. Clooney the Scourge from Redwall. A pure embodiment of evil, conquering whatever is unfortunate enough to lay in his path, gathers troops with a join me or die attitude, rules through fear, and is unafraid to kill his own army members for amusement or in response to slight inconveniences. Combined with his strength, cleverness, and intelligence, he might be one of the most hardcore villains in any children's book to date. Jacques came close to writing similarly despicable villains in other early books in the Redwall franchise, but it never feels like any really hit the level Clooney did. Story 20. There's a creature in a book series called the Kingkiller Chronicles. It lives in the Fae, so the elves, alternate universe anyway. It lives in a tree, and it can't leave the tree. What makes it so terrifying is that it can see the future and all possible paths. It can't hurt you, but by talking to it, it can easily shape the future by mentioning something to you. If it wants a war between two kingdoms, it knows exactly what to say to a stable boy who happens upon the tree to make the future branch that way. You can literally ruin the world by listening to what it has to say. Story 21. Judge Holden from Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Holden is apparently human, but possessed of tremendous knowledge, remarkable and varied skills, and seemingly indefatigable endurance. He reads as if he's not quite real, and certainly not what he seems to be. He also brings terror wherever he goes. Perfectly amiable with some people, He can speak virtually every language, yet he is also unthinkably violent, scalping natives and settlers alike across Mexico and the southern U.S. without so much as a flinch. Children seem to vanish when he comes to their towns. Most hauntingly, he says he will never die. Give yourself the gift of reading this book. Story 22. I'm going to have to go with Kylo Ren. Not because he's a terrifying villain in the sense of him being an inhuman monster, but quite the opposite. He's every kid who ever committed a school shooting, every man who took his anger out on the world by causing suffering to others. Everyone else laughed at the lightsaber temper tantrum scene, but it made me shudder because, for whatever reason, it reminded me of the vibe I got from watching Elliot Rodger speak about his manifesto on YouTube, only expressed through physical aggression with the kind of power someone like Rodger only wished he had. Darth Maul, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, they're all great villains in their own right, but they're boogeymen hidden in the shadows. Kylo Ren is the kind of person who really is the villain in the story more often than not, and that's what makes me terrified of him. Story 23. This is gonna sound completely stupid, but most of the villains from any Kirby games are horrible. Here are a few notes. Marks. A small purple ball in a jester's hat that balances on a beach ball. He pretends to be Kirby's friend until he gets his wish. He immediately gains immense power, turning into a giant demonic version of himself. He fights Kirby for a while, and then just decides to split in half and attempts to consume the universe. 0. A large white orb with a single blood-red eye in the center. It has no known origin or intention other than infesting and destroying planets with its legion of dark matter servants. While fighting Kirby, it tears its eye out to attack him. Story 24. To be honest, so many come off the top of my head, but Benicio del Toro's character in Sicario personally was terrifying for me, despite being more anti-hero with shades of villainy. The scene where he murders the entire family of the Kingpin in front of him, only to wait for it to truly break his spirit before ending him. Sure, it was revenge, but the fact is, this man has essentially lost his soul and is not above killing women and children if they get in his way, and occasionally simply as tools. Truly frightening. Someone who the villains and heroes fear equally. Very loosely regulated chaos. Story 25. Abeloth from Star Wars Legends. She's the most powerful Force user in existence. So powerful the Jedi and Sith united to fight her, and even then they only won because she let them win. She can shapeshift, use Force lightning like lightsabers, telekinesis, telepathy, and mind control, is almost infinitely powerful in the light side and the dark, and she's completely insane and unhinged. The ones, literal embodiments of the Force, could only just barely beat her, and she looks like something straight out of Lovecraft. Scary crap. Story 26. Kefka Palazzo is a great example of a villain who goes from comedy to terror. At the beginning of Final Fantasy VI, he's an incompetent general who the party beats pretty easily. But fast forward to the middle of the game, and he's poisoned the kingdom, betrayed his own people when some were vying for peace, and literally destroyed the world to become the god of magic. He won. That's something not many villains can say. He won, and the heroes have to pick up the pieces in the post-apocalyptic hellscape he watches from on high. Story 27. Dolores Umbridge. An odd choice, I know, but the reason I consider her the scariest is simple. She, or at least her personality type, exists in the real world. It's not just fiction with her. Everyone knows someone like her. Everyone has had to deal with her level of bullcrap in their lives at one point or another. And the worst thing about her, on the alignment chart, she is lawful evil. She thinks deep in her heart she is doing the right thing. With killers like Freddy Krueger, they know they are bad, and they revel in it. With creatures like the Xenomorph, they just follow their basic instincts. But a villain who believes herself the only true paragon in the world, uncaring of the pain she causes others, is a thing that everyone can relate to on a personal level.